So your test will be this Friday. Mark your own. Give all answers to number 0. All vectors have both magnitude and direction. And what I mean by direction is a theta and a what of what, or a theta in degrees and below the horizontal or above the horizontal. Often people think, oh, direction, northwest, they'll tell me. They didn't bother finding the theta. Or they just find the angle tie, but they don't tell me the what of what. I'm going to be fussy. I need both. Cannonballs fired horizontally. Oh, I like that. From cannon on top of a 25-meter high cliff. Assume there's no air resistance. That's my way of saying we're in our magic physics world where everything works out nice and we can pretend that we don't have any horizontal forces. I'm going to dulp, and I'm going to dulp, I think, right over here somewhere. So it's going to look kind of like that. The cliff is 25 meters high, and the velocity is 80 meters per second. I left lots of room down here, so I'm going to show my work down here, and then I'll just put the answers up there. I think this is a good time for a t-table, I think, where I know that AX is 0, AY is negative 9.8, VX is 80. What's the initial vertical velocity? 0, which makes the question much nicer. D is negative 25, and so I can find time by using D equals VIT plus 1/2 AT squared, as long as I make sure that's vertical, and that's vertical. And this is not, because of that, I actually end up with, I think, 2 times D divided by A square root equals T. Or instead of a 2 on the top, you could have a 0.5 on the bottom. Mathematically, Kayla, that's the same thing. Dividing by 1/2, same as timesing by 2. I don't like having a decimal inside of a fraction. That's just kind of a math nerd thing. So I'm going to go with the 2 right there. Although this is a quadratic, technically you should get a plus or minus answer here whenever you take a square root and solve a quadratic. Whenever you get rid of a squared, can I have a negative time? No, so I don't care about that. When we were using the VF squared equals VI squared, because we could have a negative velocity, we did have to take that into account. In fact, sometimes we wanted that. I'm going to get T equals the square root of 2 negative 25 over negative 9.8. Clear. 2 times negative 25 divided by negative 9.8. Square root. 2.258, I'll call it 2.26 up here. 2.26 seconds. Now, if you got that right, you get 2 marks. Otherwise, I would probably give you 1 mark if I saw that somewhere. 2 times D divided by A square root, okay? I would probably give you a 1/2 mark if I saw the t-table. In particular, though, I would have to see AX equals 0, AY equals negative 9.8, VX equals 80, and VY initially equals 0. If I saw any errors there, you'd lose that 1/2 mark. I'll write the longer version down here because I have a feeling I'm going to use it. I'm going to go 2.2588. B, how far does the cannonball travel horizontally? Horizontally, that's going to be a range. In fact, that's going to be dx equals vxt. Half A. Oh, no, A is 0 horizontally. So it's just going to be 80 times 2.2588. It's going to be 80 times answer button. You get 181 meters? So for 2 marks, 181 meters will get you 2 marks. If you got that wrong, I would give you 1 mark if I saw that you realized that was going to be our approach. Okay. What would make this question easier if I gave you the range and said find the height? Because if I give you the range to find time, it's just going to be the range divided by the horizontal velocity. No quadratic, no square, no nothing. And then plug that time in here to get the height. Although, remember, typically this will give you actually a displacement. You'll end up with a negative height, and then whatever. Fine with that. Number 2, projectile is launched at 28 meters per second at an angle of 58 degrees above the horizontal. What are the, you know what? I better dulp. Yoink. 28 meters per second, 58 degrees above the horizontal. I'm going to find Vx. I'm going to find Vy. Hypotenuse, adjacent, opposite. I think cosine of 58 equals Vx over 28. And I think sine of 58 equals Vy over 28. I think Vx is going to be 28 cos 58, 14.8377. At here, 14.8377. Since they actually want this as an answer, I'm going to go to 3 sig figs. I'll write 14.8. I won't be fussy if you didn't do the right number of sig figs there. I will take a half mark off if you didn't put units, because I'm asking you for an answer and I want units on my answers. Okay? Did I do units on the previous one? I hope I did. Vy is going to be 23.745. And here, I'll write it as 23.7 meters per second. 1 mark for each of these. 2 marks grand total. So 1 mark, 1 mark. What's the maximum height? That sounds fairly vertical to me. So I'll do my work for B down here. Maximum height, I know AY is negative 9.8. Vy initial was 23.45. That's not enough. I want to find that, and I'll put a vertical there to remind myself vertical. What else do I know? Vy final? What's Vy final at the top for a split second? Oh, okay. From this, you could find time, but I think I can go straight to distance. I think I can go d equals Vf squared minus Vi squared all over 2a. I can use the Vf squared equals Vi squared plus 2ad equation. That's doable. If you found time and find distance, I'll give you full marks, but I'm lazier. It's going to be 0 squared minus 23.745 squared all over 2 times negative 9.8. 0 squared minus, I'm going to go answer button squared, divided by 2 times negative 9.8. You got a maximum height of 28.8 meters? 28.767. I'll go 28.8. 28.8 meters. If you got that right, Ty, 2 out of 2. If not, I would probably give you a half mark if I saw that you had realized that that was 0. I would give you 1 whole mark if I saw that you had realized that you could use Vf squared equals Vi squared plus 2a, well, Vf squared minus Vi squared over 2a to get D, and then a half mark for the correct answer. C, how long is the projectile in the air for? So C wants us to find time. I think I'm gonna solve this vertically. I think I'm gonna use that acceleration. I'm gonna use Vy initial equals 23.745. I'm gonna use Vy final equals negative 23.745. This is one way to do it. The other way to do this would be to find time to top. Vy final is 0 and double it. Another way to do this would be to let the displacement d equals 0, and you can actually solve the quadratic formula. D equals Vit plus a half at squared for t. You'll get 2 answers, and that's doable. I think this is the cleanest way to get there, because I can go t equals Vf minus VI over A. It's going to be negative 23.7453 minus 23.7453. It's kind of right there, so I can carry some extra sig figs, divided by negative 9.8. You get 4. I'll take 4.84 or 4.85 seconds, I think, because this is right on the round. It really depends how many sig figs you carried, I suspect. Yes? So I'm going to go 4.85, but I'll take 4.84. 2 marks for that. Again, if you've got the units, I take a half mark off. If you got that right, 2 out of 2. Otherwise, I would probably give you 1 whole mark if I saw that. If you had realized that V final is negative V initial vertically, I would give you a half mark if I saw that. Anybody do it a different way? Anybody find time to top and double it? Give you full marks for that too. Same answer, yeah? Okay. Turn the page. I'm putting a compass rose. It's not like I've ever botched that. 2 forces act upon a point. Force 1 is 5 newtons due east. Yoink. Plus, force 2 is 12 newtons due south. I think this one actually works out evenly, yeah? 13 is the answer. This is the 5, 12, 13 Pythagoras triangle. Anyways, I will give you 1 mark if I see 5 plus 12, and then I have to see, for you get the 1 mark, a line with an arrow drawn pointing down like that. Okay? Or I would give you 1 mark if you did it this way. If you went 12 first, 5 next, and you'll notice, James, I get the same arrow pointing down. Here is the mystery force F. Here is the mystery force F. I give you 1 mark for either of those. I tend to do the questions in the same order that they give me if they're right-angled. If they're really yucky, and we'll get to some later, then I always draw the yuckiest vector first. No. Do I? I think I draw the easiest vector first and then the yuckiest vector second. I can't remember. When we get there, we'll get there. And I think, Sheldon, my theta is going to be there. So the resultant is going to be 5 squared plus 12 squared, which I think gives you exactly 13 newtons at, and it's going to be opposite, adjacent. Looks like it's going to be tan theta equals 12 over 5. 67.4, I'll take 67 degrees. I'll go 67.4 degrees. What of what? North of south, east of west, what of what? What's this one here? Let's see. Sheldon, the horizontal, the nice line is east. That's going to be the of. Of east, what direction from there do I go? South of east, yes. South of east. Or I would take 90 minus this, 22.6 degrees east of south. Typically the way I mark these, 1 mark for the magnitude, half mark for the theta, and a half mark for the what of what. Okay. Number 4, Mr. Dewick. This is, I think, tougher than I'll ask you on the written section of the test. I might feel okay giving you a nasty non-right-angled triangle as a multiple choice question on your test. Okay. What's the plane's ground speed? Really what we're saying is this. Engine speed plus wind is what gives me the ground speed. In other words, Ty, I'm arguing, I think I'm going to add those 2 vectors tip to tail. By the way, what if I wanted to find, for example, the engine speed? What if I wanted to get this by itself? How would I move this over? Subtract, and you would end up, just as a nerd moment, with that. And how do you subtract vectors? You don't. You add the opposite. That would be, in other words, I would have no problem, especially if I gave you this equation here. I would have no problem on your test asking you to get one of these by itself, subtracting a vector. How do I subtract vectors? Oh, Julie, I don't. I add the opposite. Okay? Just gave you all of it. Okay. North, east, south, west. Plane is traveling 220 meters due east. Yoink. Plus, there is a crosswind blowing 80 meters per second at 30 degrees north of east. North of what? North of east. North of what? North of east. I'm going to go east first. What of east? North. So it's 80 long with a 30-degree angle. Eventually, Kyle, in a couple of units, when we get to momentum, we will actually just go, you know what? That's 240 plus 80. We will add them to tip to tail and say, hey, that's the resultant. There is a way to do that. This angle here is 150 degrees because the one right next to it is 30 degrees, and they make a lovely 180-degree line together. And you can use the cosine law, which, do you guys do cosine law in grade 11 or grade 10? C squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2AB cos. It's faster. Or at least it's less writing. But you can also solve everything with components. And that's how we're going to handle this one. We're going to break it up into, it's a velocity. I'll call it Vx and Vy. Adjacent, hypotenuse, opposite. Vx ends up being by the way, your correctly labeled vector diagram, I give you a half mark for that and a half mark for that. Okay. Vx ends up being cosine. Yes, I think. So it's going to end up being 80 cos 30. 69.282. And Vy ends up being 80 sine 30, which I think works out to exactly 40. So I'm going to redraw this, and here's what I have. 220 plus 69.282 plus 40. That's what I have. Okay. So, really, I have this. Plus 220. I have a line 289.282 long, horizontally to the east. Add that tip to tail to the 40. And Lindsay, do you notice the red line that I just drew looks an awful lot like the red line that I drew earlier when I just added the two slanty vectors tip to tail? Now what? Same old, same old. There's theta, and there is the V that we want. So I can use Pythagoras. It's going to be this number squared plus 40 squared equals square root. Oh, almost works out even. 292 meters per second. At theta, opposite, adjacent. Tan again? Yeah. Tan theta equals 40 over 289.282. 40 over 289.282. I get 7.87 degrees. I'll call it 7.9 degrees. You said 8.0. I'd probably take that too. It's a very small angle. By the way, it's not a big crosswind, and the plane is going pretty fast. It's barely getting nudged out of the way. It kind of makes sense in hindsight. So I'm going to call it 7.9 degrees. What of what? North of south, east of west, what of what? North of east. For 2 marks, I would give you 1 mark for the magnitude, half mark for the angle, and a half mark for the what of what. On a test, written questions are usually worth 7 marks, and so I give out lots more part marks, but I didn't want this quiz to be out of a zillion. How many of you got that okay? Nice. That's a tough question. Oh, speaking of tough questions, Cliff, at an angle. Projectile is seen in the diagram below. If h is 36, find the range. Do I see slanty? This is a job for components. I think Vx is going to end up being hypotenuse, adjacent, opposite. Vx is going to end up being 20 cos 30. And Vy is going to end up being 20 sine 30. In fact, I think I stole this diagram from one of our exercises, and I just changed the height. Because I think we end up with 10 as your Vy initial, and I think we end up with 20 cos 30, 17.321 as your Vx. All right, they want me to find the range. Guess what I'm going to spend most of my time finding? Time. And here, since they gave me lots of room, let's do the full t-table, and let's kind of walk this through here. So my t-table is going to be horizontal, vertical, ax equals 0, ay is negative 9.8, and then for this question, Vx was 17.321. Vy initial was exactly 10. They must have given me one more thing. Oh, they gave me the vertical height. The vertical height is 36, so the vertical displacement is negative 36, and now I'm committed to solving for t vertically. How many of you found time with the quadratic formula, either using a solver or... Those of you that used the quadratic formula, how many of you did it by hand without a solver? Okay, then I'm going to ignore your method because that's kind of using technology. How many of you found Vy final and used that to find time? The rest of you, I'll do it that way. I'm going to say, hey, Vy final equals question mark. Well, Vy final squared equals Vy initial squared plus 2AD. How to get rid of a squared? Square root. It's going to be the square root of 10 squared plus 2, negative 9.8, negative 36. 10 squared plus 2 times negative 9.8 times negative 36. Square root of... And I get a Vy final of 28.383. Except I have to realize it's going down. I have to put a negative in front of it. My equation won't give me, my calculator won't give me that. My equation will, because it's technically a plus or minus, but I have to realize my calculator won't. Okay, so now I can find time. It's going to be Vy final minus Vy initial over A. You know what? Let's put the y's in there because there's v's kicking around all over the place. Vy final, negative 28.383 minus Vy initial, exactly 10, all over negative 9.8. Negative answer button, minus exactly 10, close bracket, all over negative 9.8. Those that use the quadratic, did you also get 3.9166422? That should be bang on, I think, because I didn't round off at all. So all right, I'll go 3.9166. Is that what they wanted me to find? No. Range. Okay. Range. dx equals vxt. Plus a half at. Oh, no acceleration. 17.321. The time is 3.9166. 17.321 times, answer button. Whew, you get a range of 67.8. Now, the fact that there's a 4 here, I'd probably take 67.9. In fact, you know what? I'd take 67.7. In fact, heck, I'd take 68 if you went to 2 sig figs. Okay? I'll go 67.8 here. 67.8 meters. Now, if you got that, what was this question worth? That gets you 4 out of 4. Otherwise, how would I spread out the part marks? I would probably give half mark for that and a half mark for that. That's 1 mark out of 4. Every one of you now can almost do components in your sleep. I'm hoping it's as close as I can give you to a free mark question. Okay? I would probably also then give you 1 for finding V final. Those of you that did that method. Those of you that used the quadratic, if I saw you write down the quadratic system or equation, like D equals VI times F, I give you 1 mark for that. You all would get 1 mark for finding time. So we're at 3 out of 4 right now. I would give you a half mark if I saw that, and then a half mark for the answer. I really don't care about the answer, Tori. I care about the method. So you can get this wrong and still get 3.5 out of 4. Don't leave stuff blank. Is that all they wanted me to find? Just the range? Whew. Okay. Ho! Wow! Ho! Hey! Hey! Ho! Ho! I don't know about you, but I'm feeling like I'm running into a wall. Yeah? You can relate? This is a tough question. We're going to find a slanty velocity, which means we're going to find its horizontal and vertical components and then add them together tip to tail. Oh, and they didn't give us time, and we're going to spend most of our time finding time. Any thoughts on how I want to start this? Hopefully that's going to become a habit. Slanty components. And then we're never going to use that 34 again. So I'm going to break it up into... By the way, you'll notice I tend to extend my velocity. I like my triangle to be nice and big. Don't try and do little tiny, tiny triangles. That just leads to error. Don't be scared to extend the line to make your triangle a little bit bigger so you can see what's going on. There's Vx. There's Vy initial. Hypotenuse. Opposite, adjacent. Opposite. I think adjacent is going to be, Vx is going to be cosine. Of course it is, right? So it's going to be, Vx is going to end up being, well, let's do the whole thing, Mr. Do It. We're going to get cos 38 equals Vx over 34. So Vx is going to be 34 cos 38. And I think Vy is going to be 34 sine 38. $26.792. And 20.932. Well, I'll stop there. 20.932. Alrighty. Sheldon, I'm going to assume the picture isn't trying to deceive me. I notice right here it started to head down already, so I'm going to dulp. I'm going to draw my velocity hitting the wall like that. Which means, have I just drawn a slanty line, Sheldon? You know what that's a job for? And I'll break it up into Vx and Vy, but it's going to be Vy final. It's not going to be the Vy initial. It's going to be whatever it hits the wall at vertically. But Vx I know. Woohoo! Vx is going to be 26.792. I need Vy final. Well, Vy initial was 20.932. The letter Y, does that stand for horizontal? So if I write this, what am I going to write next to it? I know that. That's what I need. And then I can find VY final. How can I find time? I'm going to do that kind of up here since there's room. What haven't I used yet? The 94, the range, the horizontal range. I think what I can do up here is I can say, hey, wait a minute, dx equals 94, vx equals 26.792. I think I can go dx equals vxt. I think I can go t equals dx over vx. 94 divided by 26.792. 94 divided by 26.792. You get a time of 3.5085? 3.51, but I'll carry extra sig figs. 3.5085. Ah, nice. 3.5085. Because now I can go V final equals V initial plus AT. I can go V final equals V initial plus A times, I'm going to use my answer button. Is this on its way up or on its way down when it hits the wall? Am I expecting a positive or a negative answer here? Hoping for a negative. Yes. Negative 13.451. $13.451. What happened to the negative? It's right there in the arrow pointing down now. Whew. And now we're on familiar territory. So here is the impact velocity. It's going to be Pythagoras. So it's going to be 26.792 squared plus 13.451 squared, square root. You get a magnitude of, I guess, 30.0 if I round off properly. I can't round to 29.9, so it's going to be 30.0 meters per second at, and there's my theta, opposite, adjacent, tan theta equals 13.451 over 26.792. Survey says 26.7. I'm going to really round to just 27 degrees because that will, any of you that, if you're close to that, 26 point something. 27 degrees below the horizontal. Now, if you got that, you get, what was this one? Yeah, 7 marks. Now, how would I give out part marks otherwise for this? I need to shrink this down a little bit so I can see the whole thing. I would probably give you half mark for that, half mark for that, for finding the components. I would definitely give you 1 whole mark for finding time. I would definitely give you 1 whole mark for finding V final. What am I at right now? 1, 2, 3 marks. You know what? I might even give you 1 whole mark for each component. 1 and 1. That's 4 marks. 5 marks for the 30. 6 marks for the 27 degrees. Sure. I don't know. I have an answer key for this somewhere, but I can't remember how I broke it down. This show up on one of my tests as a written question, like as a, okay, but I correspondingly made the other portions a little bit easier. But this here is a pretty good indication of what you can expect to see in the second half of your test on Friday.
What about multiple choice questions, Mr. Newt?
You know, if I was clever, I would have given you this massive, massive document that had like 40 or 50 multiple choicey type questions on it as well. A ultimate review. I might even call it the ultimate review if I was really, really clever. And if I was clever, I might have said that that was due the day of the test. Any lawyering with me? Any questions? Now is the time. Yep. Give me 1 second. Let's pause the video.